So I'm just going to kind of guess. Hey there. Welcome to the Moms Like Us Do Things Like This live show. And this is our very, very first show, and I'm super, super excited. Now, I'm Mona Corwin, and I am an author, speaker, and you know what? I'm a mentor to moms. Moms probably just like you. Moms that, don't want to screw up their kids, and they want their marriages to last. Moms that just need a little encouragement. You know, in this day and age, there's a lot of negative stuff going on about being a mom. You know, that it's a heavy life. It's a drag life. You got to have a bottle of wine to get to bedtime night life. And you know what? That just isn't true. Sometimes a mom is tired and she does need help, but you know, motherhood is way too sweet of a season to be having it all full of overwhelm and stress all the time. And that's what the Moms Like Us Do Things Like This broadcast is going to help you with. We're going to give you strategies and tools and systems and skills and all kinds of stuff from experts and moms like me. And Mona, the mom mentor, is going to be here to coach you along the way. I hope you'll enjoy the show. We will be on every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, and we will have special guests. Now, our guest today is very, very special to me, and I'm excited to have you meet her. But before I do, I need to ask you a question. In this day and age of turmoil and negative, talk about negative everything in our political realm, do you wonder how you are going to be able to teach patriotism to your kids? Well, I've got someone that's going to help us with that in just a second. Welcome to the Moms Like Us Do Things Like This show. Hey, I am super glad you're here. And before I bring Kimberly on, I want to just talk to you about something real quick. Inside of our Moms Like Us Academy the other day, we were talking about virtues, and it's inside. This is a thing called the Virtue Project, and it's part of our No Regrets Motherhood Blueprint, your guide to raising godly kids in a world that's gone crazy. Yes, that is the name of the course, and it is our signature course inside the Academy. You can learn more about the Academy in the link below. But when we were in there talking in our mom mentoring group, and I was telling them all about this Virtue Project, they kind of had this glassy look over their face. And I thought, And all of a sudden I realized, do y'all know what a virtue is? And they're like, well, yeah, isn't that something, like it's kind of high and saints have it and it's, a virtuous life, like you're pure and you're holy. And I'm like, well, not exactly. Virtues are values. Virtues are things that are important. Virtues are things that take us when we do these actions, and it brings us to a life that's more like Jesus. And we all want to be like that. So virtuous traits are things that bring us to having godly kids, that help us to have a less stressful home. And maybe some of that chaos can go away. So the Virtue Project is really a special thing. When we made the list of virtues, all of a sudden they were like, oh, now I see what virtues are. Yes, virtues are super, super important. So would patriotism be a virtue? Well, we had someone ask me that. And I said, well, almost, because what is patriotism? What does someone look like who is a patriot? And that would be, they would be understand honor, how to honor their country, how to honor political people that are in office that you might not want to honor. How do you honor the office and not the person? It is to be a patriot is to be loyal. When you are a loyal person, that is one of the groundbreaking things of being a patriot. And how about respect? Respect for our flag, respect for the people that have gone before us, the ones that have really, really given way more than we're giving. They've given their lives. How to teach your kids that? These are the things that are part of being a patriot. And I hope that in today's talk, and then with our guest, that you will learn these things and plus more things that she's going to tell us. Because my friend, Kimberly Fletcher, is one of the greatest patriots I know. And she is amazing. Kimberly is a mother of 8, which Of course, moms like us do things like this. Always put that first. And she's been married to her husband for 16 years, and he's a retired military Air Force, I believe. And I have to tell you, Kimberly has a heart for the world and the country and our country especially that I've never seen. She has a wealth of wisdom of history and women in history at that. She's written a book called Women, America's Last Great Hope. And I believe that that is truly true because, as Kimberly will tell you, she believes that all of this starts in the home, which is what we are all about. When I first met Kimberly, it was back in 2017, and there was a Mom's March, and it was a conference that she had put on, and she walked in faith as she put on this amazing, amazing conference, and I got to watch and be with her, and I just came to love her natural, easygoing way and the way that she listens to God and wants to do His will. Well, Kimberly's come a long way since then. Kimberly is a columnist as well as an author, and she also has been on Fox News. She's been on BreitBart. She's also been, let me see, lots of them. Oh my gosh, Kimberly, how did I miss that? Wait a minute, I have a list. Like Kimberly's, oh, she was on The Blaze, which, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And she is Kimberly. You've been on, Sinclair, the town hall, and she's also been on The Blaze, like I said. Now, Kimberly also is the founder of the Moms for America, and that's where this story had started. She is the president and the founder of Moms for America. And it is an amazing organization that I'm really proud to be part of. And I also have spoken on their stages. And you're going to just love having Kimberly. She's going to tell you about some upcoming stuff that's coming along too. So Kimberly, without any further ado, I'm going to bring Kimberly on in my new webcam so everybody can. Kimberly.
Hello.
You're there. Hot dog. I'm so grateful that you're here. Oh, Kimberly, I just love you so much. And I love the things that you do around patriotism and the things that are going on in our world. Give me a little bit of a clue about, how did you come to be so in love with your country?
Well, I think no, I know. I know I was always patriotic. We go to the parades, we do the 4th of July, we pledge the flag. And of course, when I was going to school, that was a thing where you pledge the flag every morning at school. And so I always felt like I was patriotic. But it was literally 9/11 that I went from being
Mm,
patriotic to being a patriot.
mm,
My husband was stationed at the Pentagon on 9/11, and it was literally a series of God given miracles that he came home safe that day. He had a scheduled meeting in the very place where the plane hit. And the day before, I took my daughter to the doctors because she was having problems with her asthma. They prescribed some medication. When I went to get the prescription filled, her ID card expired, which is attached to the insurance, and the prescriptions were $225. And I said, I'll be back tomorrow. So I called my husband and I asked him if he could take Cassie to Quantico in the morning before he went to work. And he said, I've got this really important meeting at 9:30. But he said, if I can get a first morning appointment, then I can make it work. Well, he got the very first appointment in the morning. And so he took my daughter to get the ID card, and he was dropping her off at her high school when the second plane hit, and they knew that this wasn't an accident. So he came home. He called the shop, as he calls it, called the Pentagon, and talked to them for a few minutes, said he was on his way. And then he came over to the television and watched what was going on in the news for about 10, 15 minutes. And every single one of those things kept him from being there at that moment.
wow.
He was just coming around 395 when the plane hit, but he didn't get home until hours late that night. And I remember when he walked in the door, just dropping to my knees and thanking God.
Mm,
And then sitting with my family that night, two things hit me. One, how did we get here? And the very next thought, never again. And I committed to myself that I would do everything in my power to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, remained free, had the
mm.
same blessings of freedom that I had. And I've been on the path ever since then.
Yeah. Wow. And every time I hear this story, I want to cry, and I'm trying to keep it together because I cannot. I mean, there were a lot of people that didn't. Their spouses did not come home
They did not.
that day, and yeah. So, what have you been doing to make that happen, Miss Kimberly?
Well, my husband went through, survivor's remorse when you have something like that happen, and for several days, he was just hanging on. Why didn't I die? And
Yeah.
one day I just looked at him and I said, instead of constantly asking God, why didn't you die? Why don't you ask him why you lived? There must be a reason. And at the same time, it's like the words came back to me. What are you living for? What is important to you? And so, right around the same time, two things happened. I was invited to a town hall meeting, and my son developed a physical condition which kept him from going to school. So I went into the school to talk to the school district to talk about homebound, and they said, "Well, homebound is a short term thing, and this could be a long term physical ailment. We really don't accommodate that." And I'm like, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" I'm not even kidding. This is like a major God moment. There were a series of God moments that led me to where I am. And the lady from the school district leaned forward and said, "Well, maybe you should consider homeschooling." And I was like, "What?" And literally, like a month before, a woman had moved into our neighborhood who I went to church with, who was homeschooling, and she'd been talking to me about it. And it's just so I went to her and she became my mentor. And as I was reading the books and the curriculum that she gave me, I remember that I love the whole moms like us do things like this because so I call her up and I tell her, I'm going to be homeschooling. She about jumps through the roof. She's so excited. And I said, I have no idea how to start. And she said, come over after church today. And so I went over to her house at 3 o'clock. I left that night with a letter to the school board, a schedule for 2 weeks for curriculum, and a bag of books. And after 2 weeks, I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, why did I not hear these stories? Why did I not hear about, these founding families and all this? I mean, it was just like a whole new world open to me. And then the other thing that happened is I was invited to that town hall meeting. And it was all about taxes, and they were asking the presenter was asking about representation, and so he said, "Well, how many congressmen do you have?" And we were living in Virginia at the time, and I raised my hand and I said, "Well, I don't know how many congressmen we have, but I know how many senators we have." And everybody in the room laughed, and I'm like, I don't get it. So I go home and I told my husband what happened. I'm like, "What did I miss?" And he's like, "Honey, every state has two senators." And I was like, why don't I know this? I was so mad. So that happened. I'm learning all these things that my son, these books that I have that my friend gave me. And I started like on a path of I became a voracious reader and researcher of everything America I could get my hands on. I read all the stories. I read the books. I went to Wall Builders. I went to National Center for Constitutional Studies. I went to Constitution classes. I started to go to town hall meetings. I mean, I just couldn't get enough. It was like a whole new world had opened to me. And I was pregnant with my eighth child at the time, and I ran for school board. So
Of course you did. Of course you did.
yeah. It was pretty amazing experience having this whole new world opened up to me, and that's really what lit the fire. The more I learned, the more I loved, the more I realized what we had and why it was worth fighting for.
That is an amazing story. And you know what I love about this story is that it was moms helping moms.
Yeah.
And it was through your motherhood and your love for your husband that this was birthed. And your appreciation for seeing God in moments and listening to him on the way. Um, I know, Kimberly, you've done some really pretty amazing things, and you have met some amazing people. And every time I go to your site, I go to your Instagram or something, I see another picture, or your post, you're sending me a text of another picture of you with someone. Um, how is that now that you have gone from being, homeschool mom? I'm learning everything, which you are extremely knowledgeable now, and then now you're up with you're rubbing shoulders with people in the government. Um, how does that feel now? Do you feel like you still don't know enough, or do you feel like everybody has the ability to move through and learn these things like you have?
Well, it feels kind of surreal at times. When I'm getting text messages or emails from members of Congress, it's like, is this happening? I mean, is this, I still feel like, just a mom, those are the three most powerful words on the planet.
Yes, they
Um,
are.
so I guess I'd have to go back to when God put it on my heart, because that really leads to the answer to the question. When God put this on my heart, I I didn't realize, for the 2-3 weeks that I was like arguing, that I was arguing with him and not myself. You come to realize, there is no inner voice. It's the Spirit of God talking to you. You should listen, And so I just kept asking the question, why me? There are so many more people who know so much more and could do so much a better job. And finally the Lord just answered me and he said, yes, but they'll do it their way. And I want it done my way. When
Oh,
you look through the annals of history and through the Bible stories, through the history of time, and I've studied a lot of history, so I can tell you, if you don't know, I will testify to you that it's always women. Esther saved an entire nation. Jezebel brought one down.
yes.
It is the power of women. And what kind of woman do we want to be? What kind of mother do we want to be? What kind of person do we want? What kind of daughter of God do we want to be? And so the answer is God calls, and then he qualifies who he calls. And he put all of these people in my path to be able to learn. And he knew that he needed someone like me for two reasons. One, I'm like a dog with a bone and I'm not going to let it go.
I
As
know
long
that.
as he wants me, as long as he wants me to fight, I'm going to keep fighting the good fight. But the second thing is he knew I'd have to do it on my knees. He knew
Yeah,
I'd have to do it his way because I had no idea what I was doing. And even when we're raising children, whether it's we're raising our children or we're having, how do I deal with this argument or, problem that I'm having in my marriage or with, family members or with friends. God knows all of these people. He knows them. He knows us more than we know ourselves. He knows
mm,
them. And
that's
so if
right.
we want to figure out how to work these relationships out, we need to do it on our knees. And he helps give us the tools and resources to do it. He puts the people in our path to help us, whatever the calling is, whatever the situation is. And so those three most powerful words, just a mom, every mom out there should be thinking, okay, well, I'm a daughter of God. I'm just a mom. Rock star. What does he want me to do? How can I be effective where I am? How can I be the light in the darkness that's flooding our country? And those are the questions that I asked myself. And God led the way. And that's exactly why everything that we do, from the cottage meeting to the events that we promote, to the people that I meet, it's all that same thing. When I meet with these people, the first thing the first thing I say is, please don't let me say something stupid. Um,
I'm sure you don't.
when I do an interview or radio or I'm meeting with someone, I'm like, please don't let me say something stupid. Always say that quick little prayer. But then the very next thought is, what do you want me to do with this? Or what do you want me to gain from this? I'm
Yeah,
always asking the Lord, because this is his organization and we're just the instrument in his hands to do his work.
that is amazing. I think that is one of the things I love about you best, and that really hasn't gone away. That hasn't gone away from the very first Kimberly that I met. You're much more organized now because you have to
Yes.
be. You have to be,
God
right?
is the God of organization. He does
Yes.
not do chaos. So I had
And,
to be
and he
organized.
teaches us along the way. He totally teaches us along the way. And what would you tell moms about, and the advice that you would give them on how to instill this kind of thing into their kids? Because lots of moms like us are not homeschooling their kids, or well, I guess everybody did last year, but a
Right.
lot of moms still have their kids in Christian school or they have them in public school. And what would you say to them, and what would you suggest to them to help raise patriots from their home?
The first thing I would say is there is nothing going on outside the home that can't be healed, countered, or curtailed inside the home. And
Whoa,
while we
whoa, whoa. Just stop. Say that again for the girls. Girls, if you don't have pencil and paper out, you might want to get one. And if
there
you're in
is
the
nothing,
academy, you're going to get Kimberly for a little bit longer in a little bit. But Kimberly,
always come
say
back.
that again.
Okay. There is nothing going on outside the home that cannot be healed, countered, or curtailed inside the home. So all the
Got
battles that we're facing out there, they seem like monumental tasks that we're constantly facing, with the critical race theory and the comprehensive sex education, the mask mandates, the vaccine mandates. If we focus on that, it's like radioactive fireflies. We're just playing whack-a-mole trying to hit everything. But if you know the core foundation of what your rights are, where they come from, and how to effectively exercise them, it brings a peace and a calm, and a direction like you've never found before, because it takes the chaos and turns it into organized, effective actions that have an impact, and it's just a game changer. So that's what we do, is we teach those things in the home. And we can fight the battles in the school board. We don't want to walk away from the school board. We want to show up at the school board meetings. We want to do all those things. But if the only thing we're focusing on is outside the home, then we're going to lose everything. We're going to lose our children. We're going to lose our country. There's a great quote by an author named Neil Maxwell, and he said, if we leave our children to go fight the barbarians, then one day we're going to find our children amongst the barbarians we're fighting. And that's the battle that we need to realize that we're fighting. We are raising the future of everything. The future librarians, the future media personalities, the future voters, the future elected leaders. Everything that we're having problems with, from the school board to the indoctrination camps in the media, it starts in the home. And all, what is it? I can't remember, one of the founding fathers, doggone it, I can't think of him now. Noah Webster. He said, all good government begins in the home and the family. And there's so many people, great Winston Churchill, great people who said the same thing. All the values and morals and principles, the virtues of society are taught in the home. And whatever America looks like in 10, 20 years from now, it's being decided in the homes of today. A nation is nothing but a magnified home. All of the things that we teach in our home become the future. So knowing that, then moms realize the powerful influence that they have. And the proof of that is that they're trying to discredit, devalue, and discourage motherhood across the board. They're trying to get rid of it. They don't want to. Okay, we just have these t-shirts that come out that say, mom, say the name. We've got bumper stickers, mom, say the name. We're pushing them out in our store because it's like, you can't even say, if you are so afraid of it, you can't even say the name. So the first thing we do is help empower moms to realize that powerful influence they have. Then we put the heart of freedom in their own hearts. And then they just want to teach it to their children. So how do we do that? We have a program. It's our signature program. It's called the Cottage Meeting Project. It's like Tupperware for Liberty. We all know how to do it. We've held a home party, or we've been to a home party. Only instead of promoting plasticware and candles, we're promoting the principles of liberty. And we do it through inspiring stories, relatable examples, and personal experiences that moms instantly relate to. And if all they do is meet once a month, by the end of a year, they have more knowledge and understanding of the Constitution and the principles of liberty than the majority of elected officials, judges, and attorneys in this country. And we have the evidence to prove it. We've had moms go toe-to-toe with elected officials, and they've been blown away. Well, how do you know this? The Constitution, it's actually kind of, common sense. But they learn the Constitution. They don't even realize they're learning the Constitution because we teach it by principles. We focus on the principles, and then they connect the dots with what's happening in the country. And the reason why we've been losing our country is because we've been fighting principle with policy. And those people who are trying to take over our country have completely taken all of the principles that America was founded on: hard work, integrity, character. You have to have a virtuous society. John Adams straight up said that the Constitution of the United States was made for a virtuous people. It's wholly inadequate for any other. And so we need to have those principles and values as a core foundation. But those who are trying to destroy our country, what God has created, the ultimate deceiver, is the one orchestrating all of this destruction. The devil will do everything he can to stop this. And so
true.
Everything that he's doing is trying to unravel what God has done. So he's taken all of those good, solid, foundational principles and made them bad. And then he's taken all of those satanic principles of socialism and Marxism, and there's no God in communism. There's no religion in communism. There's no families in communism. All of those things that freedom is rooted in, that God is rooted in, is not in communism. Communism is the religion of the devil. Communism, Marxism, socialism, all in the same boat. And the devil has been trying to destroy this forever. So when moms can realize everything that's going on, you can bring it down to one simple statement. This is one war and two armies. Which camp are you in? And you need to decide. And I think, most of us have decided what camp we're in. We're in God's camp. And so if that's the case, then we need to be promoting God's principles. And fighting principle with policy is not winning. We need to take the principle of freedom and we need to infuse it into all aspects of our lives, in our culture, in our music, and in what we have in our homes, the pictures we have on our walls, the music we have playing, the conversations that we have. We are providing all of those resources through the Cottage Meeting Project and through the various resources that we have on the American Heritage Center. We have Cottage Meeting for Kids, our Liberty Tree program. We have mini cottages where moms of preschoolers can do it. So we have various different formats, but it's all around that same idea of putting the principles of faith, virtue, and patriotism back in the hearts of mothers. And then mothers just know what to do because God works on their heart and that passion turns into power and they want to teach it to their children. And we give them the resources and support to do that. And they want to, within their circle of influence, promote it in their community, in their school board, and with their vote. And that's when it gets into real powerful action, because what we have learned in the 16 years working with moms across the country is the vast majority of conservative women of faith are not voting. And most of them aren't even registered to vote.
Really?
That's why, yes, that is why we're losing our country. And if we just got up and got registered and voted our values, we'd literally see a shockwave. We would literally see a shockwave across this country as conservative, constitutional, pro-life candidates are elected at all levels of government. And so it all starts with putting those ideas in our heart. And then we put it in the hearts and minds of our children. And then it's magic from there.
Oh gosh, Kimberly, I could listen to you talk like this all day. Actually, I have before. I am so grateful for what you're saying, because I do believe that moms, and we agree that moms, the gift of motherhood is being slammed and turned upside down to where it's considered like only for people that have no intelligence or don't have anything better to do. And when you talk like you do, that just refuels the ability of a mom to be able to influence not only her own children and her own life and her own legacy, but also the legacy of the country that we live in.
Yeah.
I seriously think that there's something about patriotism that the world does not want to see. And I've tried to kind of wrap it around like they don't want to respect anything because they don't want to, quote, bow to anything, but yet they bow to other things that are not good. And when we look at how the enemy really is moving in all of this, I really think this is the core of everything. I really do.
Well, it
The
really
virtuous
is.
and the
because
principles. And
it,
God gave those to us, right? He gave
He
this to us,
did.
and He's
That's what I
all
was going to
about
say. God
freedom.
is a God of freedom. He has to live by these principles too. And he doesn't force people to heaven. He wants us to choose him, but we have to choose him. He wants us to be a free people. He wants us to be a people of virtue and integrity, but we have our own choices.
Yeah.
And we make our own decisions. We have to live with the consequences of those decisions. But he created America was just a venue. Freedom can thrive anywhere
Yeah,
with the
sure.
right ingredients. But America, the United States of America, is the venue which he chose to launch it, and it has become a light to the entire world. Those virtues and principles that are taught through the idea of patriotism. Patriotism isn't just a geographic area. Americanism, it's not geography. Patriotism is allegiance to an idea. And this ideal of freedom and equality, and I mean that was something that nobody had ever seen before in the annals of time, and he created it here in this beautiful little spot, and we need to hold on to it, because what happened in as Thomas Paine said, we hold on to the Constitution and the republic for which it stands, because what has happened in 3,000 years may not happen again. So we need to hold on to it. There's a great quote that I think the moms would really appreciate. It's by E.T. Sullivan. And it says, we fancy that God can only manage his world with battalions, when all the while he is doing it by beautiful babies. When a wrong wants righting, or a truth needs preaching, or a continent wants opening, God sends a baby into the world, perhaps in a small home and of some obscure mother. And then God puts the idea into the mother's heart, and she puts it into the baby's mind. And then God waits. And he continues, the greatest forces in the world are not earthquakes and thunderbolts. The greatest forces in the world are babies. And we're the
Wow.
mothers who are holding on to those little ones.
Yes, we are. I often tell the girls that, when God decided, hey, it's time, I'm going to send my son to the earth, he didn't put him in the government where he could learn to rule, right?
That's
He
right.
didn't put him in academia where he needed to learn some stuff about the world. He didn't even put him into the church, the synagogues, so that he could know all of the thing into the hands of the rabbis. He put them, he put his son in the arms of a mother under the care and loving protection of a father inside of a family. And that means something. And if you are a believer and you are one that would say, I'm a Christian, I believe what the Bible says, then you need to know that this applies to you. This applies to you and your babies and your husband. And making home that place. When someone said one time, it takes a village to raise a kid. It doesn't take a village. A village is nice. A village is fun. A
It
village can
takes a
certainly be
mother. It
involved.
takes a mother to raise a village.
It takes a mom and a dad inside of a
Yep.
family with aunties and uncles, and then we move out from there. And raising kids is really important. Do you think, I mean, like, when did it happen, Kimberly, that all of a sudden moms and dads, like, they decided that the schools could teach this stuff and that the church would teach them how to be good people, godly people, and that the society in general was Christian Judeo and had good morals and values. When did all of this fall apart?
It's really been a societal shift that started with taking fathers out of the home. And when you look back at the history of our country in itself, um, it was the black families that were always united together. I mean, there were more divorces in white families than there were black families. They were very family oriented, very. They were just an example to all of us. They were hardworking. They were. It was fascinating to go back in history and watch and see where the breakdown of the family started. And they started it in the black community when they brought in, it was in the 60s, after President Kennedy was killed, and they brought in, the big welfare state. They had a dabbling in the welfare state with, in World War II with
Right.
FDR, but it was really in the 60s when it just they had they took it and put it on steroids. And they wanted to give all of these things to people. The irony is, when they first started giving handouts to people in the 1940s, 30s, and 40s, they didn't want them. They wanted a job. They wanted to
Yeah.
work. They wanted to provide for their family. They didn't want a handout. By the time the 60s came, they had been slowly infiltrating these societal ideas of changing the principles and introducing new policies. And so people, of course, nobody wants to go hungry. Especially women, we're bleeding hearts, right? We don't want anybody to go hungry. We don't want anybody to go without health care. We want them to have these things. And so they sold us a bill of goods, if you will, because the people who administer all these programs are taken care of and paid, but it's just trickle down little bits to get to the people who actually need. But that's not how they sell it. They sell it as, well, don't you care? The same thing with the schools. Well, how many times do you see a sign, save our schools, save our libraries? Who doesn't want to do that? Of course, what do we need to do? And so they're really good at messaging, and they've been doing that. So they take the father out of the home and replace the father with the government. And then it moves into the white families and to the Hispanic families, and they're just replacing dads all over the place. And so the government is now taking care. The government is now the person working with the mom to run that family. And they give them just enough to survive. And every time they get a little bit ahead, the government takes away, so they can never get over that hurdle. And I know for a fact, because I was on welfare for a while. And every time, you can't own anything, I think you're allowed to own a car. You can't own a house. You can't have any kind of life insurance or annuities. You don't have any kind of ownership of property. And so when you start to build something, when you get a better job, then they say, oh, well, you're making more money now, so we're going to take some of these benefits away. And they're supposed to be, something to help you get to that point. But they've made it so that you never get to that point. And it's a helpless, hopeless situation. And unless you go in and empower these moms with truth and help them realize you can be what you want to be and you can overcome this, and moms coming together, especially. I've seen this with our organization as moms have gotten involved in the community. And they've motherhood crosses all barriers. So they can go into these communities, and sometimes it's just as simple as, a mom who just, I need 2 hours away from my kids, especially when you're a single mom. Can you imagine? I mean, how we do it with having the help of our husbands. Can you imagine? I have the greatest respect for single moms who are out there trying to do this. So I think we as moms can align and help, fill in those gaps and holes until we can bring that family back together. But it started with the breakdown of the family. And so if the government can come in and replace a father and become a major part of that family's livelihood and existence, then they can start taking all aspects of society. And when you have a government that can tell you, if you want to go to our government schools, then you need to have these vaccinations, or you need to have these examinations, or whatever, then they can tell you any vaccination that you have to have, which is why we are where we are now. So it's just this constant little creeping in of the government in all aspect of our lives, and taking away the idea that we are self-sufficient, that we as parents, we are the ones that have fundamental, ultimate authority over our children and our families, what their education will be, what doctor they're going to go to, what medical treatments they're going to have. That is supposed to be parents, but they keep taking it away. And what they're trying to do, what the government is trying to do now, is give more power and authority to the children than the parents have.
Well, then we don't need parents at all. Then we don't need parents at all. We got rid of the father. Okay, for y'all that are my listeners, you're probably 45 and under. You need to know something. When Kimberly says they talked the black man to leave his family, the way that happened was that in the impoverished areas, which in the very, very poor communities, they made it where you could only get those things if you were not married.
That's right.
This is how it happened. And I mean, white people were in there too, like everybody was in there, but it was a lot focused inside of urban, color, ethnic families that were struggling. And so a lot of the moms didn't get married, and they were poor. So if they had a couple kids, they could get a little bit more to take care of the ones they have. And this isn't just us saying something. This is what happened.
It's
when
reality.
You tell a man that and these men, doesn't mean that those men didn't love their their girlfriends or their children, but it means that they knew that if they married her, that she would not be able to have what she needed. So he didn't.
And I have a lot of friends in both the Hispanic and Black community that are involved in this situation right now, and they've come to us. There's the fathers are engaged. Here's the interesting thing: fathers who want to be a part of their children's lives, they are a part of their children's lives. They're just not married to the woman, so that she can still get her benefits, and then he can be a part of the children's lives. And so that it's a man and a woman who are sharing children in a husband and wife scenario without being married.
And that was the very seed. That was the beginning.
That's it. So what is the government encouraging when they're making marriage bad? What is the government encouraging when they're saying, we know better how to raise your children than you do? I mean, there are people who have openly come out and said, they're not your children. They belong to the community. And these are people who are in elected office. There are people who are in the media, and they really believe this. They're not your children. They belong to the community, and the community needs to take care of the children because the community cares. And obviously the parents don't. I mean, it's a lot of craziness going on. And that's why learning the foundational principles are so important, because when you know again, what your rights are, where they come from, and how to effectively exercise them, then you know that there's no such thing as a constitutional right. And my head
That's
explodes
great.
every time I hear people say, "Constitute my constitutional right." You don't have a constitutional right. If you have constitutional rights, then the government gave them to you, and the government can take them away. You have a God-given right. You have a list of God-given rights, and the Constitution protects them. So we need to start using the right language. It is a constitutionally protected right. That takes the government out of it, because we have been trained in schools that government is God. And too many people have bought into it. And parents really believe that if you walk up to the school, there's this big iron gate, and you are privileged to be able to drop your children off and enter that iron gate every morning and expected to pick them up in the afternoon. But you don't go in. You don't ask questions. For heaven's sakes, you don't sit and monitor a classroom. And one of the things we tell parents all the time is you don't even have to have children in that school
That's
to
right.
be able to go in and monitor a classroom, to go and look at the books in the library. You can do that. Of course, you go and respectfully sign the book and whatever, and they try to use the whole safety, whatever. So come with me, walk with me, and because I'm going into the classroom and I'm going to monitor it. And then they say, "Well, we don't want you to disturb the teachers." I'm just going to be sitting in the back, very quiet. That's not what it's about. They don't want you to know what's going on in there. And last year, one of the best things that happened with COVID was parents could see in their own living room what was going on in their children's classroom.
Right. And a lot of them didn't like it. Oh my gosh,
No.
Kimberly. This is it. We are it's time. It's time for moms to be empowered. It's time for the men in our lives to be empowered. It's time for us to take our constitutionally protected rights and hold them dear and teach them to our children. Kimberly, thank you so much for being with us on our very first Moms Like Us Do Things Like This. You
That's
are a
all. I'm
mom that
honored to
does
be here.
things like this. Oh my gosh, is so amazing. Okay, moms, you can find Kimberly everywhere. I'm going to put all of her stuff down in the notes. She's got a new she talked to you about the cottage meetings. She's talked to you about the cottage meetings for kids. There's also a conference coming up in October called Mom Rise. It's going to be in Florida. And do you want to just touch on that for a second before we say
Yeah, it's
goodbye?
going to be in Orlando. So it's a destination location. Come early, stay late with your family. 3 days of awesomeness. Lee Greenwood is going to be there, Congressman Burgess Owens, a lot of other congressmen. And just today, I'm like, we got to get Mona on the stage. So, Mona,
Yeah.
we're going to add you to our speaker lineup. We've got a lot of great speakers. So, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. And I promise that everyone who comes will be encouraged, inspired, and leave empowered.
Yes. And I think that's what I love about Moms for America so much. It's all about like equipping and it's positive. It's not the negative drag that we hear on the TV all the time. It's literally empowering us to not only take care of our homes and our families, but also to take care of this wonderful country that we have. Okay. Thanks so much, Kimberly. I know that today, you moms that are with us have decided that you're going to find out a little bit more about um, Kimberly's stuff. And you know what? You really should. Teaching your kids these things is super, super important. You know, my kids are all grown now. I have 5 kids, and I've been married over 40 years. My husband and I, we have made a lot of mistakes, but there are some things that we did right. I was thinking about that the other day when I was going over and thanking the Lord for the good things that have happened in our marriage and in our raising of children, things He helped us with. And I was reminded that every single one of our children, when they left that age, that college age life, they all left with their love for God intact, and they're all patriots. Every one of our kids are patriots. They love their country and they appreciate where they live. And I think it's because my husband loves his country. My husband is a patriot and he taught me how to love it. And you can drive by our house any day, night or day, and the American flag will be flying outside of it. And every one of his children have received a flag from him for their homes. We love our country. And then God has great things for our country. And we don't need to be sad or worried. You know, we need to just do our part. The world has had harder things to do than what we're engaging in. And with God's strength, we'll be able to do it all. So I encourage you to love on your kids and teach them to love their country. And I thank you for being on this very first Moms Like Us Do Things Like This, because moms like us really do things like this. We teach our kids how to be patriots. Bye for now, and I will see you next time on our live show. Bye for now.